east route is becoming more accessible, but at the time, I have to say, it is not yet a maritime route, and especially because it's complex, it's dangerous, and there is no logistical hub. There is only one Russian base in the high north, and so with that you are not going to do commerce. But the question to the access of resources like oil and gas will be a competition first, then a contestation, sure. And so we have to be ready to have that contestation in the high north. And so we, as French Navy, we deploy very regularly our ships in the high north in order to develop the skills needed in a high area. Not that easy at the time. And you know perhaps that we are working also with Australia in the south for Antarctica, and we have a partnership to supply our common base in Antarctica. And so every year we deployed our ship, and we used to work in ice, I mean icy condition. Not that easy.
Admiral Hari Kumar, to you, as India's economic interests widen to a much larger geography, from Latin America to lots of countries in Africa and other parts, how is the naval capacity being, in a sense, galvanized into furthering its abilities?
I'll just quote what Admiral Mahan has said, that the need for a navy rises with the need for peaceful shipping and disappears with it. So if you have a large merchant fleet or trade, then you require a navy. So what we see, today we are the 5th largest economy. In maybe before 2030, we'll be the 3rd largest economy. Now what does it imply? We'll be importing more, exporting more, doing value addition. And where does this go through? It will all go through the sea. More than 90% of trade as such will go through the sea. And where we contribute in services for the tourist economy, about 45% of that actually goes through the internet, through the undersea cables. So a great chunk of the economy is going to be completely dependent on the sea. And therefore I see that there is, the risks at sea of the need to maintain maritime security, and it's going to become, more and more challenging. And we need to invest more in assets required for that. While people say that budgets are a challenge, I would say that even if it is just under 2% of the GDP, as the GDP grows, there is definitely adequate budget to meet the challenges.
Admiral Aquilino, new great power competition in new routes for new resources that need to be served and protected, perhaps in new geographies as the planet changes due to various other climatic conditions. Your Indo-Pacific Command may very well widen in its ambit. Please go ahead.
Well, first, Samir, thanks. Let me say, from a Navy perspective, right? I'm sitting here in a Navy uniform, but as a Joint Commander, what I work on every day with the team is to bring the joint force together to ensure that those freedom of the seas exist for all, the global commons that my partners talked about. Those are not any nation's rights. Those are designed for all nations to use. So the enablers that link together help provide that freedom of navigation. You cannot operate today without having the ability to operate through space. For those ships all communicate via satellite communication systems. So the linkage of that is something that we take very seriously and work each and every day, whether it be the land component or, as Nick talked about, undersea, on the sea, above the sea, on the land, in space, and cyberspace. So the capabilities certainly change. The adversary works to take advantage of any vulnerabilities. And we always work to ensure we have strengths across all those domains. But the key is the imposition of will on all nations. And, back to my aviation brother's comments, You know, this is not about alignment with the United States. This is about fighting for what's important to us. The strategy of the United States is to deliver a free and open Indo-Pacific. That's not for one nation. That's for all nations. And we have to make sure that we don't lose sight of small issues or claims or intent. We have to understand what the ultimate goal is when those things occur. So to Harry's point, utilizing the international rules to a nation's advantage to ensure they have access and the ability to control portions of the global commons is what we're concerned about and why we have to compete. The imposition of a man-made island to extend your EEZ so through legal means you can claim that you now own all of the South China Sea. That's a problem for all nations. It's not just a problem for the United States, and we have stood up for all of those nations' rights to be able to prosper and operate in those domains. So I continue to bring this up. We have to understand what's facing us. We have to understand why we take the actions we take, and we have to call out that bad behavior. And these like-minded nations, we have to come together and inform the rest of those other authoritarian states that that will not stand and we do not support it.
Admiral, let me quickly ask you a follow-up question. Partnerships. In your term as the Indo-Pacific commander, what has been the qualitative change and also perhaps a real substantive increase in engagement between, say, the India and the US?
Thanks for that. Again, everybody on this panel agrees. Number one, we can't do this alone, and we are stronger when we're together to ensure that we can deliver the world we want our children and grandchildren to continue to have. For the United States, with all of our partners, it's expanded exponentially over the past 3 years. Some of that is based in the environment. The aggressive action of some nations are forcing other nations to come together to ensure we stand for what we believe in. The U.S.-India relationship has certainly grown exponentially. The capabilities that are co-produced here with India, whether they be C-130s, helicopter pieces, munitions, now GE engines, carrier cooperation, those things have exploded in 3 years. Our ability to share information is like never before. Some of that's based on actions that occurred on the Indian northern border. The sharing of information to understand that my partner's forces are at risk and we are there to help. But that expands across the globe, whether it be the trilateral relationship between the Republic of Korea, Japan, and the United States to defend those treaty allies of which we have a responsibility, whether it be AUKUS and our tie to the UK and Australia, whether it be our linkage to the ASEAN nations, when the Quad nations get together. Those partnerships have expanded. We do 120 exercises a year in the region, 120. Almost every one of them have grown to be more mini and multilateral, and I credit that to my partner Angus Campbell from Australia. He offered that to the chiefs of defense, and we all signed up to it from the region. But it has exploded. Part of it is because all those nations feel threatened. And the last part is we're unwilling to accept a change unilaterally through a mindset of might equals right. And we do like the way our lives exist today. Freedom, freedom of navigation, prosperity, human rights, all those things that we value together.
You know, when we do war games for our young fellows, for example, we create fictional islands, fictional actors, and talk about fictional situations. Why does no one name China? You know, even war games don't name China. Even they create a fictional situation. By the way, these are games conducted by experts. I'm saying, why is it that folks in uniform are so shy of naming the clear and present danger and building capacities to respond to it? And assuring the people that we can count on them to be there when it gets rough. I'm going to turn to you, Admiral Benke, and I'm not asking you a question. That's just my problem with the war game, not with you guys. My question to you is what has been the qualitative change in your engagement with the Indo-Pacific? You have an Indo-Pacific strategy that came out a few years ago. How is the hitting the rubber? How is the rubber meeting the road?
I think there has been a really significant shift in UK thinking over the last decade, but particularly enshrined in our recent integrated reviews looking at our diplomatic, economic, trade and security engagement and strategy that has recognized that the pacing economic growth in the world is really coming from the Indo-Pacific Asia region. You know, all the statistics, doesn't matter what you read, say that that is where the growth engine is. And today, 40% of the UK and wider European prosperity is connected to the Indo-Asia Pacific region. And therefore, recognizing that formally, anticipating that continued direction of growth and wanting to engage with it is a perfectly natural and important thing to do. But of course, when you make that recognition, that then brings with you obligations and responsibilities to engage with the safety and security of the region, because it's that framework which we've been discussing for the last 45 minutes or so that underpins economic growth that everybody can benefit from. It's not correct that we do not play our part. We cannot be a leading partner by any stretch of the imagination, but we can certainly be a contributing partner and ally in the region to ensuring that safety and security. So for me, as the head of a Navy now that is being pushed by the government to do more in the region, that is one of the big changes we have seen over the last few years. And if you know, there will be people in the audience, experts who have watched Royal Navy deployment patterns over the last 10 or 15 years. We used to pitch up occasionally and then go away for a period of time. Now we're under absolute clear direction, not just to arrive more regularly, but actually to have a persistent presence at sea, on land and in the air, and that is what we're moving towards. The Carrier Strike Group deployment in 2021 that went to Japan and back despite COVID was a major indication of that intent, to be followed up by another major carrier deployment next year, done with allies and partners in the regions. We want to engage with as many countries, but the very clear intent from across the United Kingdom political leadership is that the region matters to us. We have ties that are economic, that are friendships, that are diplomatic, and in order to maximize that, we have to play a part in ensuring the security and that international framework that we all subscribe to around the world is underpinned. That's the change that it means for us.
And perhaps even the AUKUS arrangement is a indication of your greater engagement in building capabilities in the region.
Well, I mean, AUKUS demonstrates a strategic long-term commitment. I know that there may even be commentators in the room that say, you know, great thing about Britain is they'll turn up and then you know they're going to go away for a while and we can carry on as if they've never been here. And now that is so...
I mean, in this country they won't say that.
No.
But
they say other things, Samir, and I know, because some of it's been said in this room over the last 2.5 days, so that's fine. But the point about AUKUS is it's underpinning a multi-decade strategic relationship, the same with the GCAP partnership that we're building with Japan. It ties us in because we want to be. Now, AUKUS started as an agreement to transfer technology, submarine nuclear propulsion technology. It has grown into so much more, and you can now see the follow-on benefits that accrue from making that sort of a commitment. Huge investment by the United States, bringing us, Australia, and them together. And I think that's the sort of, you know, number of multilateral frameworks that you see tying in that stop discretionary activity in the short term and oblige us to long-term strategic commitment.
I think you've raised an important point, and as we come to the end of this panel, maybe starting with you, Air Marshal, let me ask that question. AUKUS is a clear determination by certain countries that transfer of critical technologies and building capabilities of others is essential for being able to manage the new threat environment and the rise of a new power, who we shall not name. But having said that, are you confident that this arrangement that 3 of the 5 eyes have entered into might extend to a 4th eye as well, who may not be part of the 5 eyes, who shall not be named?
I think we can confidently say AUKUS Pillar 1 at the moment is, AUKUS Pillar 1 is the nuclear-powered submarines, and we can confidently say that is exquisite technology that the United States and the United Kingdom have chosen to share with Australia to solve an acute operational problem, and that is that conventional powered submarines did not have the range, the stealth or the speed to provide the deterrent effects that we need in our part of the world. But AUKUS Pillar 2 opens up opportunities. The birth of AUKUS Pillar 2 was recognising that the strategic alignment, not just between nations, but between industries, in order to deliver AUKUS Pillar 1, if we got to 2040 and not expanded on that alignment, not tried to do more with it, we'd have looked back and thought we'd missed an opportunity. AUKUS Pillar 2 is about recognising that the alignment required to deliver a nuclear-powered submarine to Australia opens the opportunity for us to share so much more. And there is opportunity in the future to bring other nations into AUKUS Pillar 2. At the moment, we're focused on delivering across 6 lines of effort. We are impatient for the capabilities that would come with AUKUS Pillar 2, and we are looking for opportunities to expand that.
Admiral Bajor, let me turn to you. Is it important to build capabilities and transfer critical technologies to partners who can help in securing the future?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I think that if you put partnership on the table as something which is very important, you cannot say, I will not share with you part of my knowledge and part of my skills. And so if you want to work together, you have to share what you are able to share. Of course, sometimes you are not able to share everything. That's true. And we have nuclear deterrence submarine, and so we will not share that for sure. But in terms of technology, of course, we can have very close partnership, and we have very close partnership with some countries, and where we share and where we transfer technology for them to build their own defense industry, and to have also, as Ben say, long-term strategy, which is, I think, in the world where we are, very important for the future.
Let me turn to Admiral Aquilino. What could be some big, bold Indo-US ventures in the near term that could put our navies closer together in managing the new threat environment? Some new ideas, some over-the-horizon thinking that you believe would be useful for us to chase as nations, as navies, as armies, as defense forces?
Yeah, thanks, Samir. I think the integration of unmanned capabilities is probably the thing that would pop immediately in my mindset, right? We watched it being used, again, in Ukraine, against the Ukrainians. We watch it being used by the Houthis against commercial traffic. But when that capability and capacity is harnessed by the like-minded nations here, whether it be cooperative aircraft wingmen, whether it be synchronized swarms of munitions, whether it be unmanned undersea capability and unmanned air capability, first of all, we've been experimenting with it for decades now. And we're at a point where I believe the integration of unmanned and manned capabilities as designed and utilized both by each of our nations and then collectively will be an asymmetric advantage. And I think that's a focus that all of us share. Again, technology apart, we share those things. We share more than we don't share, to your last point. Right? The F-35 is a great example of the highest end technology from the United States and our industry partners, Lockheed Martin in this case, and sharing it to deliver deterrent effects globally, because there's nothing that compares with it. We will continue to do that. But I think that unmanned aspect and the synchronization with manned capabilities, tied with AI, but man in the loop, that's where we're going to see the next set of focus and actions that we will have to really work together to make sure. Because when you look at AI, these like-minded nations sitting up here and the rest that are in the world will use it differently than those authoritarian nations, and that's concerning.
Admiral Hari Kumar, the final word to you. I'll just flip the question a little. How important are partnerships, certainly in terms of acquiring capabilities and technologies and building systems, and equally how important is indigenous development of technologies for a country as large as India? And where is the balance between building homegrown solutions and partnering with others and acquiring tried and tested solutions that can be deployed immediately? How do you find the balance?
Well, I would say that we have given a commitment to our national leadership that by 2047, when Bharat becomes a developed nation, Bharatiya Nausena also will be a postmodern navy, which is completely Atmanirbhar. So we are working towards that, and that is an area where we are now looking at joint collaboration, and a lot of work is happening with our partners, many of them are present here, to develop jointly in Bharat the latest technology. So I would say we need to have shared technologies. You want to overcome shared challenges. So that's an area where much progress is being seen, but no effort is being spared to encourage MSMEs, startups, unicorns to come up with solutions which are useful for us. I would like to say that we have this Naval Indigenization Innovation Organization, for example. They have done the Swavilamban seminar last year as well as last year. The Honorable Prime Minister had unveiled 75 challenges. There were more than 1,100 respondents with solutions. We assessed them, and about 118 contracts have been signed. Many of them are world-beating technologies for the first time. Some are force multipliers, and so on. So there is adequate ability within the country to innovate, to indigenize and produce stuff. We need to support them, and which is what we are doing, hand-holding to ensure that we get what we need. At the same time, we are working with our partners as well.
Thank you, Admiral. When we started this conference 2 days ago, we posed the question in our opening segment, Chaturanga, which was the strategy for enforcing order in old times. We had asked, what is the Chaturanga for today? What is the strategy for today to manage conflict, to prevail in contest, to build cooperation, and to create solutions? And I think we've heard this panel say it loud and clear. Partnerships, partnerships, partnerships. And I think that is a good note to conclude this session and to conclude this conference, Raisina 2024. Partnerships matter. They give us resilience, capacities and capabilities to navigate an ever-changing and dynamic world. Please join me in applauding this wonderful panel for their contribution. And gentlemen, thank you for all you do for all our countries. Thank you for keeping us safe. And to all of you, thank you so much for your time, attention, effort, energy, for being with us, staying with us. Do join us again next year. And if some of you are still around, have fun this evening, or whatever is left of it. So best of luck and take care. Travel well.
And that was a peacetime event. So if you can see what is happening in the South China Sea, the Red Sea, where people are seeking to impose their will on a global commons, i.e. something we all have access to, then that ripple will be felt far and wide, not just in that point. And this is what differentiates the maritime environment from the land environment, and why navies like ours have to work in partnership, because no one navy can cover all of the points in the world at the same time, and the interdependencies of the effect, the impact that Admiral Aquilino was talking about, for us all are so intertwined that actually we're obligated to work together. And the thing that gives me hope that we will find the solutions, it will be hard work, it will take time and dogged persistence, is that those partnerships, the way we think, inevitably develop the agile, innovative thinking that is necessary to prevail. And we are just having to adapt ourselves for the first time in many decades to the fact that the global commons are contested in a way that they have not been for a long time, and the impact of that, if we do not respond, will be felt by us all, not just by those who are in the locality where that contestation is taking place.
So, to all the 4 admirals on the panel, I would like to give you time to think about a question I'm leaving with you. New domains, for example, the melting of the ice in Arctic and new routes, and what happens there, is that a new arena for great power contestation, who is going to prevail, very important piece of geography that currently is underserved, under-observed, invested into, for right reasons, but are we going to be able to work with other partners in the region to put together a framework? New routes, as we move from oil to rare earth, we are going to have new geographies of vital importance. There might be new Malacca Straits in the future, new choke points that are going to determine future trade, and of course a new assertive sea power, as Randy's presentation told us, that there is another nation with the most boats on water. And how are you going to now deal with a new era where someone with a different conception of rules has